There we go. So just so you know, I have my baby on my back at the moment. She's asleep, but it's possible that she might wake up, and in that case, I might have to leave for a second and hand her off. But for now, she's napping, and I think we're gonna get started. So hi everyone, happy Monday, Homeschool Monday. I want to talk to people every day while we're stuck at home like this about a different plant or a different species of mushroom that I really love, that helps me to really be excited about the world and the place that I live in. So I today, the other day, who called in the other day and saw on Friday? Who was in my first lesson? Do we remember learning about plantain on Friday? Yeah, cool. So this plant that I want to talk about today is another plant that comes up really early in the spring, and it's called chickweed. Has anybody ever heard of chickweed before? Yeah, cool. Chickweed is one of my very favorite plants. I have a bucket of it that I collected the other day. I'm standing in my kitchen, and I went out on Saturday morning and I collected a whole bunch of herbs that I'm going to make food and medicine with over the next couple of weeks. And this was one that I got a ton of. This is my little plant bucket full of chickweed. So I'm going to get close to the camera, and then I'm going to show you some other better photos so you can see what it looks like. But this is just this like big clump of plant, right? It's a whole bunch of different plants. This chickweed that I love. Here's one little strand of it. So it's like long and skinny and has these tiny little leaves on it. And right up at the top here, in a couple of weeks, are going to be little white flowers that open up. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to show you a better picture of what that looks like. Can you see? Wait, I need to see you. Okay. Can you see my screen? Great, cool. So this is a photo of the chickweed plant with the roots and about how big it is. So that's showing you on the side that it's about 7 inches tall. And I'm going to show you this one. Oh, you were seeing a different picture. Okay, yeah. You're seeing the giant mat of the chickweed plant. And this is how it grows. It's very delicate, and it grows in these mats. It has very tiny root systems, so it's really easy to pull out of the ground. And it has those beautiful little white flowers on it. And I'm going to show you another photo of the close-up of the flowers that I think is really pretty. So that's what they look like when they open up. There's 5 different petals, and each of the petals has 2 little lobes on it, and they're super, super tiny. But the Latin name of this plant is Stellaria media, and Stellaria means like star, and media means medium. So they're like these medium-sized plants with these star flowers, and they, I wanted to share them with you today. I don't know exactly where all of you live, but at least where I am in southern New Jersey, it's getting pretty warm here. We didn't have very much of a winter at all, and these plants, even though they look really delicate, and they kind of are really delicate, they're also very, very strong. And these that I collected the other day, these big mats of these plants, survived over the winter here. And they're one of the first plants to pop up in the spring. Sometimes they make it over the winter, and you can harvest them throughout the winter, even sometimes underneath snow. I've harvested them and eaten them and made food with them and made tea with them in the middle of winter, even when there's snow on the ground. So one of the ways that you can identify them when you find them in your garden, or maybe in like a meadow that you're walking in, or the edge of a forest or something, is you pick up the plant, and I hope you'll be able to see this. You can pick up one little plant and you break its stem. And so I broke the stem, see how it's like cracked there, but it's still holding on to itself because it has this, what's called a little filament. It has like an extra string inside of it that causes it to stay together even when you break the outer part of the stem. So I broke the stem again, but it's still together, right? And that's because it has this little thing in there that's holding it together. And then eventually it kind of like pops. Oh, there's a good, okay. Do you see how that just happened? It's got this like little white string in the middle of it. So that's one of the main ways that you can identify this if you're not really sure based on how the leaves look and how the flowers look. It's really, really yummy. You can just eat it like a salad green. And that's one of my favorite ways to do it, is when I'm out and I find it and I'm harvesting, maybe I'm harvesting medicine or I'm tending my garden. If I find this, usually I'm just like, oh, hi, chickweed, nice to see you. And I'll just pull some and I'll just eat it while I'm working. It's really, really good for you. It's very high in lots of different vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we need. It has high amounts of vitamin C and vitamin A and D and vitamin B. It has some vitamin B12 in it, which most plants don't have in very high quantities. It has some iron and calcium, which we all need, especially after a really long winter when, I don't know about you, but a lot of people in the wintertime don't eat so well. And it's really nice after we have all the, this cold time where we're inside all the time, we can get back outside. We have a lot of plants that help us to get healthy again. So we're ready to do all the work in our gardens and, get our bodies back on track. I see I have a question. I'm going to unmute you so you can ask. What's your question?
I'm Abby. Is this chickweed?
This is the thing.
Oh, oops. I can't hear you.
Yes, sorry. I think it is. It looks like it to me. Can you do what I did earlier where you very gently in front of the camera, you can like break its stem very, very gently. You can like crack it a little bit, and then there should be a little white string in the inside of it, basically, that kind of like holds it together. I think that is what it is. I want to see. Yeah. Are you pulling it apart? Did it just kind of like break in like it kind of like broke twice is what it felt like? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You got it right there. That's awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about like what it feels like to you or what it looks like to you?
It's kind of wet since it's been raining all day. The stem's kind of rubbery, and there are little hairs on it if you look really closely.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a lot of this in our yard, but I never really realized what it was until
See the
now.
buds on there. There's buds on it.
Oh yeah, little flower buds, just like mine. Where do you live? What state?
New Jersey.
You're in New Jersey too. Yeah, cool. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. You're right. They do have little tiny hairs on them. And there's another species, another close relative of this chickweed that's referred to as mouse ear chickweed. And mouse ear chickweed is even more, mouse ear chickweed is even more fuzzy. You got that for me? Cool. Yeah, so you might have that as well. Mouse ear chickweed is the reason it's called mouse ear, and in difference to this one. So the leaves of this one they're pointy, but mouse ear chickweed is called that because it has these cute little rounded mouse-like ear leaves, and they're super fuzzy, and you can eat those as well. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about eating chickweed. So I told you that I eat it raw, which a lot of people do. But one of the things that I think is really fun, have any of you ever heard of pesto before? Yeah? Those of you who are shaking your head, yes. Anybody who hasn't heard of pesto before, shake your head no. So pesto is the most common way that people eat it. It's an Italian food that is usually most commonly made from basil. So basil leaves and pine nuts and lots of garlic and olive oil. But one of the things that I really love doing is making pesto with other types of plants and other types of nuts that maybe are a little bit easier to find or a little bit less expensive, because pine nuts can be really expensive. And also nuts or things that are nut substitutes for people who have nut allergies. So what I want to talk to you about today is a recipe for chickweed pesto. So you get all of those really great nutrients that I was talking to you about, and those medicinal benefits, and that like body healing early springtime with this really yummy flavor. So you take your chickweed, you get a bunch of it. You'll probably need quite a bit of it if you have access to it, and I'll tell you about where you can find it a little later. And you grab your olive oil and a bunch of garlic. I love garlic, so I would probably add this entire head of garlic, but you can just add as much as you want until it is way too much for you, and then you can stop. Garlic is really, really good for you too. Garlic helps to kill off any bacteria or any viruses or any microbes, and it's really good at keeping your whole body healthy. And then I would add to this so that it's friendly for people who have nut allergies, I would add pumpkin seeds instead. So these are pumpkin seeds. Some people call them pepitas. And what I would do in a really a good blender or a food processor is I would put all of the ingredients in together. I would put the chickweed in first. I would make sure I got so the chickweed that I have here, and probably what you guys would find, also has like leaves in it, because it grows along the ground in these really long mats, and other things fall into it. So you want to pull out anything that isn't chickweed, and that'll be pretty easy for you to tell. And then you stick it all in the blender or your food processor with your nuts and your garlic and a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper, and then you cover it in olive oil and you just blend. And you put on the blender or you put on the food processor until it gets really creamy looking, and you can keep adding more oil until it gets to the creamy consistency that you want. And what happens when you get that creamy consistency, you can taste it, make sure there's, has enough salt, has enough pepper, you have the flavor you like. It's usually really, really yummy and creamy, and maybe a little bit stringy because chickweed has these little strings in it, but you just keep blending it until you don't have any of those plant parts left. And then you can either use it right away. You can cover pasta. Usually a lot of people will cover some pasta with it. Or you can put it in your freezer. You can just put it in like a Tupperware container and just get it into your freezer. Make sure you label it with the date on it and what it is, chickweed pesto, because when it's in the freezer, it's really hard to identify sometimes what things are when they are frozen. So make sure you put a label on it, what it is and what date, and then you'll have food for later too if you make a lot of it. Where else can we go with this? Do people have questions? Yeah, I'm gonna unmute you. What's your question? Oh, I'm not hearing you. Try again. The person that says Leia, I'm not sure what your name is. What's your question?
Is there is there other types of chickpea that you're saying that looks like it, but it's not in the that like when you eat it raw, it can make you sick?
That's a great question. As far as I know, there are not any plants that look like this that are poisonous at all. And that's why it's something that I really like to teach people about. It's important that you look at a bunch of different pictures of this. So like the ones that I showed earlier in this lesson, look at a bunch of different pictures and make sure that you think that you look at maybe 2 or 3 photos and you're like, yeah, that looks like it. Yep, that looks like it too. Yep, that also looks like it, before you eat it. And I promise you, after just like a couple of times of doing that, you probably will never forget. And remember the test that I showed you about pulling it apart with this little string inside. I know that it's hard for you to maybe see that and understand without being able to physically touch it, but once you find this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's the best way to identify it, is just through that. And it has the little hairs on it, like very, very hard to see hairs unless you get really, really close to it, but they are little tiny fuzzies on the stem. So is that helpful? Cool. Other questions? Oh yeah.
I just wanted to jump in on that. Scarlet Pimpernel looks a lot like it, but is poisonous. But the hairs are what distinguishes it. So if you have the hairs on it, you should be safe. It's chickweed. If it doesn't have hairs, that's Scarlet Pimpernel, perhaps.
Interesting. I'm going to look up a picture of that right now because I don't know if I've ever seen it. You are very correct. So interesting. So the Scarlet Pimpernel, I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see what this looks like. The flower colors are different.
Yeah, but right this time of year.
Yeah.
Looking up chickweed to make sure it was actually chickweed before we ate it.
That's great. That's good to know. Do you, in your experience with it, have you also, does it like feel different? Is it just as tender, or?
I have no experience whatsoever. I just looked it up in the past 10 minutes because I wanted to.
Yeah.
we were gonna. So I'm learning this as I go.
Cool. Okay. Good. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Take a look at it.
I'm gonna show you this photo that I just looked up. So that right there is the Scarlet Pimpernel, and it looks fairly similar, but the flowers are this like, this reddish pink, and the chickweed flowers are white. And it looks to me, I'm gonna see if maybe they also have some different growing habits.
The site I saw also said that if it's not in bloom, the buds of the chickweed will have the little hairs on them.
Okay, let's see where it's, you're still seeing my screen. Just want to see where it says it's native to. Europe, Western Asia, and North Africa. Okay, so this plant is probably found not in my area. It seems like it is more like in warmer climates, but it's really good to know about this particular plant being very similar looking. It looks a little bit like the leaves are a little bit thicker, kind of like succulent, if you know what that means.
Thank you for clearing that up for us.
Yeah, thank you. I've never even seen that plant before, so it's possible if any of you are in different climates that you might come upon it. Okay, I unmuted you again. What's your question?
It says on Wikipedia that it's really acrid and bitter.
The Pimpernel.
The Pimpernel.
Oh, Pimpernel. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, acrid, I think is how you pronounce it, and that so you'll be like, ugh, I don't want to taste this, and that's a really good point. With if there are things that are really bitter and really taste bad are often that's often our body's way of knowing that we shouldn't eat something. So bitter plants a lot of times are medicinal, but only in very, very small quantities. So we usually don't eat them in really high amounts. So the flavor of chickweed is not bitter at all. It's very mild, kind of like lettuce. Like if you were just gonna eat like a piece of romaine lettuce or something, is what this tastes like to me. And you know, I eat it all the time. It's yummy. So I really want you guys to try it. Anybody else have any questions? There's a whole lot that I could talk about with this plant, but it's been about a half an hour and I don't want to bore any of you. And I know you probably all have schoolwork to get to, and it's a rainy day, so hopefully you have some fun other activities you can do.
It's been half an hour already.
I know, it's been a half an hour. Isn't that crazy? See, when we talk about plants, time flies, right?
So, I have a question.
Yeah, what's your question, Corianne?
What other things can you do with it besides make pesto? You said I had
So,
pesto.
yeah, so it's actually fairly medicinally. It's often used, people drink it in tea, like you just boil water and then put it in to the water. It's used, it helps to clear up congestion.
Okay.
It helps with digestion. It helps generally as like an overall body cleanser. So it's like I said earlier, this like early spring plant that pops up when our human bodies need some healing after sitting inside all winter and being like slow and sluggish and eating food that we probably shouldn't eat. And there are a bunch of plants that pop up, these like edible wild plants that a lot of people call weeds, that are really good at getting our bodies back on track. So the plants are good for our kidneys, they're good for our urinary system, they're good for our respiratory system. They also, just like that plantain last on Friday, you can make a salve with it. So you can infuse this in olive oil or in coconut oil or something like that, like I explained on Friday. And it does similar things. It's good for like clearing up eczema, so dry skin, and good for like light cuts and bruises and things like that. So it's a really, really great, really versatile plant. And there's all sorts of cool things you can do with it. Some people even make like hair washes with it, so it can make it's really nice. It's as an additive for like shampoo and conditioner in certain commercial products. And we could make our own chickweed tea and just use it as like a rinse on our hair in the shower. And that's also helpful for, you know, making it like shinier and healthier and stronger.
Yeah, I'm always looking for different ways and different teas and herbs to mix with my mate. So I'm wondering how that would go with that. So
Oh, maybe, yeah, that would probably be a good idea. Yeah, it's really great as a tea. It's very, very light. It doesn't have a whole lot of flavor.
And what? So like when obviously it's low to the ground. Where would it grow near? You said it can't just be in the backyard. There's pretty.
Yeah. So it grows. It generally likes it likes many different conditions. It likes it's this low growing mat forming kind of carpet forming plant. And it usually, in my experience, likes higher quality or like high nutrient quality soils. I found it growing on like old manure piles and like old mulch piles that are really decomposed, and old like finished compost piles. It like pops up because it really likes all that nitrogen. But I've also found it in the middle of woods, like under complete shade in the middle of winter. It really doesn't seem to really care. And each individual plant I've read can have up to like 15,000 seeds that it just distributes. And that's why it can become, once it's in a place, it will stay in a place for a really long time. So it's really, really good at distributing itself and kind of staying around for a long time. I have some in my backyard, and my backyard's really, really sandy, but I don't have a whole lot. I'm trying to encourage it over time as I make the soil in my yard a little bit happier for plants.
So if I pick a bunch of it and kind of just like throw it in an area in my backyard, it most like will reproduce.
Yeah, you can treat it like a garden plant. It grows like a weed, but you can definitely treat it and encourage it to grow. And that's what I do.
But it's not like October berry
No, I mean, it won't take over in the way that some plants will. You can definitely contain it. And its root system is really shallow. So if you want to get rid of it, you can kind of just like scrape it off pretty easily. Yeah, I don't think it's something, I think it's something to encourage in a space to like cover empty ground, more so than, grass. Personally, that's how I feel. Yeah. Nicole, you have a question?
Yeah. Is there a way to harvest seeds from it easily? And when you do that, and how do you know when to do that?
Well, I would say you would have to look for the open flower. And once the open flower goes away is when the seeds, like generally with a plant, once the flower dies off, the seeds set. And you'll want them to dry out. So usually they're kind of immature, and then they'll dry out. I think they're probably extremely small.
Yeah.
I've never even thought about chickweed seeds before, honestly, because I just find it in so many places. But right now I'm like squeezing this to try to see if I have any indication. But I think I'm just seeing parts of the flower that haven't opened yet. So I think that the best thing to do would be to just, the flowers come out fairly soon. So I would say just like look for the species, look for a space where you see it growing, and then go back, probably take like at least like 3 weeks to a month before they would be ready, and maybe even longer. But you just like maybe pick one like little flower bud off and see what it looks like. A lot of times if you pick an old kind of dried flower head, you'll just see this kind of like dusty, like sometimes you can't even tell what's a seed and what's not. But you could just gather it in a little baggie, like maybe a little paper envelope so it doesn't get moldy. And you could scatter them too.
Thanks.
So, yeah. Liz, you have a question?
Yeah. Which part do you like eat, or do you just eat the whole thing? Like, do you eat the roots and the flowers and the seeds? Or...
So I don't eat the roots, but if I did eat the roots, they wouldn't hurt me. I usually just, so this is a plant here that has a little bit of roots down here at the bottom. I would put that into a pesto recipe. It wouldn't hurt. But when I'm eating it just raw by itself, I usually just kind of like pull a piece off and then stick it in my mouth. And the leaves and the stem and the flowers, I eat the whole thing.
And they taste the same?
Yep.
Okay.
Pretty much. All right, y'all. I think we're done for the day. Thank you for joining me. I will do this again tomorrow. Does anybody off the top of their head have a plant in mind that they're like, I'm going to call back in tomorrow and I really want to learn about this particular plant? Okay, I'm going to unmute. Cool, I'm going to take some notes because you all have your hands up. All right, so.
Stinging nettle.
Okay, great. That's one of my favorites. I will definitely get to that one. Okay.
Lemon balm. She loves lemon balm.
All right, lemon balm. I'm writing them down. These are all my favorite plants. All right. The one that
wintergreen and lemon hearts. They have another scientific name, but I forget what it is.
I know. I think I know what you're talking about. Wintergreen. Stinging nettle. Lemon balm. And what are you interested in?
Bananas.
We could talk about bananas, but bananas don't grow around here. Are there any other plants around here that you want to learn about?
Basil.
Say again?
You said mushrooms earlier.
Oh, well, we'll talk about mushrooms, definitely. I'll give you a couple different specific mushrooms, I promise. Yeah?
Poison ivy.
Yeah, good one. Definitely. We'll learn how to identify that one, because that's a very, very important for people who want to spend time in the woods to know what that looks like. And all the good things about it, because there are some good things. Anyone else? All right, that's a great list for me. Those are good requests. I appreciate that. And I will see you all tomorrow, I hope. Tell your friends, and we can have as many people in here as we want, and it'll be really great. All right? Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.